USFL Weekly. As always, the Really True Sports Network is powered by Betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. Make sure you check them out at Betting.net. I am your co-host for the USFL show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host. He is former star, fullback at Taylor High School, Joe Spillman. How you doing, Joe?
Well, I was not a star fullback at Taylor High School. I didn't even play offense my senior year. But I'm doing great, Mike.
Okay. Well, that's kind of shitty. I need to get somebody who actually was a better player probably as a co-host. So if you're out there, make sure you send me a message. All right.
I had to get my shoulder operated on, Mike. I could only play one way.
Week 1, USFL. Joe, you went to Birmingham for that first game on Saturday night where the Birmingham Stallions beat the New Jersey Generals 28-24. What were your thoughts on your experience of going to the USFL?
Well, I've been thinking about this pretty much since I got back. We got down there early. I took my family down. We got down there early, and of course, as you know, Mike, they're pretty much giving away tickets this year for the USFL in Birmingham. I think it's $10 for adults, and kids 15 under are free. So they're begging people to come, not came.
I'd rather come than came, but go ahead.
Yeah, so when we first got in there, of course, it's at Protective Field, which is the home of the University of Alabama Birmingham football team. And the stadium was empty when we first got there. You could tell that they're really trying to push player interaction with the fans because, the players came out on the field. They were signing autographs, tossing footballs, being real personable. About 30 minutes till game time, and of course, I sent you a couple pictures if you remember. About 30 minutes till game time, that stadium started filling up pretty well. I think the final numbers were 17,500 or 18,000 people in the stands, which it is a 40,000 seat stadium or 45,000 seat stadium. So it wasn't full, but there was enough fans there to kind of feel the energy. And it did get loud. I mean, the fans got behind the game there. But it seemed to me that everybody that turned up, all 18,000 people, they were there to root for Birmingham. So they were essentially people that were local to Birmingham, I think. And I think as we saw the next couple of games over the weekend, there wasn't anybody there. Of course, they had some bad weather on Saturday, right?
Sunday.
And on Sunday. They had bad weather on Sunday. And there was nobody in the stadium. And then they had a Monday night game and still nobody in the stadium. I thought maybe that would be a test to see if anybody would come out. I think Birmingham's going to get a decent draw of fans down there that are local to Birmingham, but I think these guys are going to be playing in an empty stadium essentially. And we can move on to what I thought about the game if you want to get into that or.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched all the games this weekend, if you remember, I brought up, if you're going to bet these games, bet the under on all of them. You'd hit 3 out of 4. The offense was terrible. I don't know if the defense was that good or the offense was so bad it made them look good. The thing I took away from New Jersey, Luis Perez, Deandre Johnson, I mean, when you put them together in this league, to me, behind Jordan Tamu of Tampa Bay, they're probably the best quarterbacks outside of there. Perez's arm, Johnson's leg kept the Stallions' defense on their toes. Perez threw 2 touchdown passes, and Johnson ran wild for 98 yards and a touchdown of his own. When I look at this team, the thing that stood out to me was Randy Satterfield, the wide receiver. He finished the game with an even 100 yards, 5 receptions, and a touchdown. So I think New Jersey is a threat here. I know they lost the game, but I think this, as the season progresses, and when you look at Birmingham, Alex McGough, I mean, he's not very good. He was benched after back-to-back drives where he showed an inability to protect the football whatsoever. The ball slips out of his hands on an attempted pass. It was a mess. The only thing that saved them is you had, I think it was, Tony Brooks-James, C.J. Marable as running backs. Arias Mitchell had a good game, 5 catches, 96 yards. And, I mean, Jamar Smith gave this team a chance to win the game with his legs. But Jamar Smith's not a very good quarterback either. I think going forward, there's a bigger threat here that New Jersey could jump up and win the whole thing than there is Birmingham. because I think as the season goes on, New Jersey will develop into being the better team because I think they're better coached and they have better quarterback play.
I agree. If you watch that whole game, it was pretty evident who the better team was. New Jersey was clearly the better team.
Well, you had the two missed field goals. That was the killer.
The two missed field goals, and really, I don't know if I agree with the play calling as of late in the game. Now, Deandre Johnson for the Generals, who I didn't think played well. The Generals essentially came in the second half of that game and used their quarterback as a running back all game and ran time off the clock and was able to inch their way back into the game. But at the end of the day, the quarterback play, what I saw in person, I think I sent you a text.
Yeah, Luis Perez to me looked all right. He looked like a quarterback at least. He's the only one of the four that did, though. I mean, the other two of them were running backs. And I think that's going to be a huge issue. People like points. And if all these games, I mean, this was 28-24, not too bad. But yet a 17-3, a 17-12. Right. There needs to be some fireworks. 3.5 million people watched game one. But, I mean, it's about the same numbers the XFL got their first game and the AAF got in their first game. And then the numbers progressively went down, which is what I expect to happen. Yeah, which is what I expect to happen. And, I mean, when I look at it, the quarterback play is going to be the biggest issue with this league. But it was a good first game.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're spot on with saying that, if fans are going to turn up to watch this, they want to turn up and see high-scoring games. And I don't think with the quarterbacks are in this league, even the big-name quarterbacks like Tamu, he didn't play well either. And I think the talent on the field at the wide receiver position, at the tight end position, is going to be far greater than what you have under center. And I think that showed during the 4 games we saw this week. And I think that will continue to show because I just don't think that the talent level's there at quarterback to produce quality games.
Yeah,
go
ahead.
I told you, I sent you a text during the game, and I said, you could tell it was a professional game. And what I meant by that, because you kind of disagreed, is the speed on the field. The pace of play was a little bit faster than what I normally see in college. The players were a little bit faster, but the quality of play was not where I thought it should be, if that makes sense.
Well, and Ryan Peters says, my biggest takeaway watching was how many teams thought Paxton Lynch was a first-round talent. I think there was just one team, the Denver Broncos, that thought that. And, I mean, the quarterback play is going to be an issue. Offensive line play is going to be an issue because those are the two things that are lacking even with a lot of NFL teams. So I think it's kind of crazy to think that you're going to get any of that in the first week of a new league. Now, the next game was the Houston Gamblers against the Michigan Panthers. And I know you love Jeff Fisher. And Jeff Fisher, he went with Paxton Lynch for a while, and it was absolutely horrific. Shea Patterson started the game. He was bad, but then he came back in, threw better later on. The Michigan team, the offensive line was horrible. And once again, I don't know if Houston's defense is that mean and that front seven is that good, or they just dominated a bad team. Reggie Northrup, I think, was the star of the game. To me, when I look at this game, it was not a very well-played football game. The Gamblers and Panthers both looked like they had good defenses, but it's because the offense was bad. Stevie Scott, I think, is the best thing that the Michigan Panthers have. He led the backfield with 18 carries, 72 yards. So when I look at this, both of these teams, I think quarterback play is going to be an issue. I do hold out some hope for Shea Patterson. And Paxton Lynch, I don't know where Paxton Lynch's next job will be, but my guess it'll be to Walmart as a greeter.
Yeah, so and I think that is going to be kind of the story here with the USFL. I don't necessarily think that the defenses are so much better. I think the edge rushers are much better than the tackles, and I think that the defensive backs are much better than the person under center. And you and I kind of talked about this, Mike, that, whether you're a wide receiver, defensive back, those players at a professional level are legitimately a dime a dozen. you could find great athletes to play in those positions all the way around. And I think the talent level at those skill positions and the quarterback having to read those skill positions in the defensive secondary, I think the talent level outweighs that of what the quarterbacks have. And I think that is going to be what we see this entire league is quarterbacks throwing for 180 yards and coaches saying, well, shit, what are we going to do? Let's put our backup running back in there that's got wheels and run all over the field like this is an option offense in middle school football.
Yeah. Then next up, the Philadelphia Stars, who are the defending USFL champions if you go back to 1985, played the New Orleans Breakers. The Breakers won the game over the Stars. Decent football game again, but once again, quarterback play was an issue. Both teams, running back-wise, were all right. Kyle Slaughter, to me, for the New Orleans Breakers, I think he'll be okay, but he was 17 for 27, 150 yards and an interception. Once again, I think the best receivers in this game, you had Chris Rowland, but outside of that for the Stars, I mean, the tight ends look like the best receivers. And even though he tossed an early pick six, I think Brian Scott for the Stars is a man capable of putting up the stats needed to make his weapons relevant with the Stars. And once again, the Breakers won this game. But I think as we go through the season, I think the Stars, it wouldn't surprise me if they advance and become a better team than the Breakers.
I agree, and I think Scott's the only one that actually put up decent numbers at quarterback this week, if I look through that right. Is that correct?
He put up decent numbers. I mean, Jordan Tamu probably put up the best numbers, but he threw 2 picks also, which were a killer. Anything else you want to talk about this game on?
No, not really.
All right, don't be so excited. Next up, the Tampa Bay Bandits, the first Monday Night Football game in USFL history, defeated the Pittsburgh Maulers 17-3. The Maulers are a joke. Their coach, Kirby Wilson, is a moron, and that's just to be nice. They need to choose a quarterback. Kyle Laviolette and Josh Love are horrible. Their punter was terrible. The thing that blows me away is they only lost 17-3. But I think what I took away from this is the most complete team here is Tampa Bay. I think Jordan Ta'amu is the real deal. I would love for him to be, ahead of Brandon Allen in Cincinnati as the backup quarterback. And I think the offense looks like it's capable of being the best offense in the league. The backfield belongs to B.J. Emmons for right now. He scored an early touchdown, was used as a pass catcher. And Cheney O'Grady is the Travis Kelce of this offense. O'Grady was an early favorite target. He had 3 catches in the first 2 drives. So what I took away from this is, going in, I thought Tampa Bay was the best team in this league. Pittsburgh was the worst. I am absolutely positively sure of that after what I saw from these 2 teams in this game.
I would have to agree with you that Pittsburgh is the worst team in this league, and I'm sure that they'll get a win over the 10 weeks, but I
don't think they will. I don't think they
so at all.
No, I think
I'm guessing that Pittsburgh will probably go about 2-8. That's what I'm guessing.
0-10.
0-10?
Yeah.
Is that your official stance?
That's my official stance.
Okay. I'm going to go 2-8. However, I don't think Pittsburgh's defense was all that bad. Their offense is horrible. Their defense was not all that bad. And I actually expected Tampa Bay for this to be a blowout. And why 17-3 is not quite a blowout, in my opinion. This game should have been 40.
It was kind of a blowout because I never, ever thought there was any chance Tampa Bay was going to lose the game, though. I mean, Pittsburgh didn't throw a pass until the last minute of the first quarter. I mean, It was like watching the Switzerland County Junior High boys team, for 8th grade football team that you coach play. Just running the ball all the time.
Yeah, that's because they run the option, Mike.
But they don't.
Also, I did see that my wife commented on here and said my son said, "Go Generals." I do want to tell you that my son Michael, when he goes to games.
Wait a second! You never told me that you named your son after me.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. We'll go with that, Mike.
Oh, you didn't? All right, never mind then.
But so he decided that once we got into the stadium that he had to pick a team. And he was going to root for that team. And I think because everybody else in there was rooting for Birmingham, he decided to root for.
He was going to see if he could get his daddy's ass kicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he decided to root for the Generals. And he gets so impassioned with football that we saw a few tears shed at the end of that game when the Generals didn't come away with the win. I told him it was ridiculous. He didn't agree, but
Yes, Michael, that is ridiculous. It's the team's first ever game. If the Bengals lose and you want to cry, that's fine.
yeah, we saw that this year too.
Yeah, but that was you.
You're right, it was.
Cried when they won, cried when they lost, couldn't help it. Just basically generally a bitch, huh, Joe?
A real bitch.
Me too. And you know what? If you want to bet the over-under on how many times Joe Spillman will cry next year during the Bengals season, find the best place to bet for you. Betting.net offers expert and user reviews for every online sportsbook and casino in your state. Check them out at betting.net. All right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to look forward to week 2. And we're going to start off with Friday Night Football. The Michigan Panthers against the New Jersey Generals. Right now, the Generals are favored by 1 point. This is Michael's team. And right now, you would get plus 105 to bet on Michigan, minus 125 to bet on New Jersey. Joe, you want to start us off? Since you were undefeated last week, I was 3-1. So you're up undefeated. A game on me. You can ask Risley how it is to be up a game on me. The only issue here is this. If this league shuts down 3 weeks in and you're in the lead, you won.
Oh, yeah. And I will take that as a win.
So every week is kind of very important.
So let me ask you, since you're like the Hall of Fame of the NFL Pick'em show here on The Grueling Truth, and we are doing a USFL show, is this like a charity game where I get to come and beat the Hall of Famer at this game?
No, because you won't beat me. I'll win in the end anyways. Ask anybody. 7 years in a row in the NFL Pick'em show. 5 years NCAA basketball. I always win. I piss excellence, Joe. Now pick the damn game. Michigan against New Jersey. Jersey's favored by a point.
I'm going to take New Jersey. I think New Jersey should have snuck away with the win this week. They didn't get it done in the second half. I think they beat Michigan pretty handily.
I think it'll be a close game. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to take New Jersey. I think Shea Patterson, who completed 17 of 25 passes for 192 yards and a touchdown in the loss to Houston. I don't think he played that badly when he came in the second half. I still doubt the Generals a little bit, but I think this is a team that's going to get much better. I really like Luis Perez. I wish they would just roll with him. But I do think that it is nice to have a guy like Deandre Johnson who could come in and run around. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to make the same pick you are. I'm going to take the New Jersey Generals, which leads us to the Pittsburgh Maulers against the Philadelphia Stars. And the Maulers are plus 215. The Stars are minus 260. The over-under is 36.5. You can notice the over and unders dropped a lot after last week. But Pittsburgh-Philadelphia, to me, is not an interesting matchup. I would be lying if I tried to sell you that it was. Philadelphia quarterback Brian Scott was sacked 6 times and falling to New Orleans. He did complete 25 of 36 passes for 202 yards and a touchdown. The Stars mustered just 73 yards rushing. Pittsburgh, to me, is just poorly coached. I mean, we saw them with so many penalties. They had an inability to solve Tampa Bay's defense. Justin Love, Kyle Lauletta combined for 11 for 26. To me, this is a no-brainer. I think Philadelphia wins this game 28-3.
I think Philadelphia wins this game as well. But I feel like these are probably the 2 worst teams in the league right now. Do you agree?
Too early to tell on the Stars. I hold out some hope for the Stars. No hope for the Maulers. Well, I think what we also see, Joe, what you got to remember is these guys have only been practicing for a few weeks together. So I think that we will see a big shift over the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's really going to take to week 4 or 5 to really see who the best teams are. To me, there's no doubt Tampa Bay would be in the top half of the league. Pittsburgh's in the bottom. The other 8 teams, I think, will sort themselves out over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, I can go with that. I don't think Scott played bad, but I don't think that he has the offensive line. I don't think he has the weapons around him to succeed. against the defenses in the league. I mean, the defenses far outweigh the offensive here. It's like playing Techno Bowl back, in '92. If you wanted to score, you had to get Walter Payton because he was the only person faster than the defense.
No, Bo Jackson, dude.
Well, Bo Jackson too.
Bo Jackson scored every time he touched a ball, and you could stop Walter Payton if you had Lawrence Taylor.
Okay, but I kind of equate the USFL to that.
Come on, in 1992, you were like 5 playing Tecmo Bowl, so it's not really fair.
I tore it up, Mike.
Just because you were playing other 5-year-olds, Joe.
I was a bad, so you couldn't handle it.
I could. We could play right now if you want. We could play on air.
You'd get beat.
Hey, when I was coaching football in Owensboro, Kentucky, there was nothing to do. So me and my offensive coordinator and a couple of my players, we all stayed in the same house. And we used to stay up all night and play Super Tecmo Bowl.
Were you the Super Techno Bowl champion of the house?
Yeah, I always win, Joe. We've already went through this.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
So are you going to pick Pittsburgh and Philadelphia? You picked Philly,
I already did. I said
Philly. All right, so give me a Birmingham Stallion who's minus 150 against the Houston Gamblers who are plus 130. Who do you like in Birmingham against Houston?
Well, I'm gonna go with Houston this week, and here's why. I don't think Magoo's playing this week.
Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, and I don't think he played that well to begin with, but I haven't really seen if he broke his ankle or not. They did pull him from the game, but I learned later that they actually pulled him because of a hurt ankle. But I don't think that you could win in a game plan on a professional level, even in the USFL, by sticking a Wildcat quarterback back there and just running the ball all over the place. I mean, it worked last week, but I don't think it works against Houston, so I'm going to take Houston.
All right, I'm going to go with Birmingham because I think you're forgetting one huge factor, the crowd. There will be a crowd of at least 10 to 15,000 people cheering on Birmingham. Sure. Clayton Thorson was ineffective. I do like him normally. They replaced him with Kenji Bahar, whatever the hell his name is. So I think this. I think Thorson's a better quarterback than that. Hopefully they start him this week. I haven't heard if they are or not. But I'm going to go with Birmingham. I'm going to say 30-17.
That much, huh?
Yeah. Why not? And I forgot to switch that. So once again, Birmingham versus Houston. We've got Joe taking Houston. I'm taking Birmingham. All right, game 4, the final game of the week. 2 teams that are undefeated. A battle for first place, Joe. The New Orleans Breakers, plus 120 against the Tampa Bay Bandits, who are minus 140. Now, if you wanted to bet this game, where do you think you would go, Joe?
I would think you would probably go to betting.net to check out.
You know why? Because they find the best promotion. Quit mumbling. Find the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes so you don't have to. Head over to the website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits, betting.net. All right, the New Orleans Breakers against the Tampa Bay Bandits. Who do you like here, Joe?
I think Tampa Bay is easily the best team in the league. I'm gonna take Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay is favored by 2.5. They ran out to a 17-0 first half lead. Jordan Ta'amu, 20 for 32, 185 yards, a touchdown. He was steady. Cheyenne O'Grady, I think, is one of the better receivers in the league. He caught 8 balls for 86 yards. New Orleans scored on an interception return for a touchdown by Vontae Diggs. They had a block punt recovered for a safety. Those things are not going to happen in this game because they usually don't happen in game after game. Kyle Slaughter did not play great, had an interception. Jordan Ellis ran the ball 89 yards in the score. I think Tampa Bay wins this game 28-17.
I think that's an accurate assessment.
All right, so when we look at the USFL, we've just got through the first week. Is this going to work? I mean, because what I see today is I see The Rock Johnson putting out that the XFL has signed an agreement with the NFL and the NFL Alumni Committee to basically the NFL is going to back the XFL. To me, does that kill the USFL? In your opinion?
So I don't know. I think I think the first person on the bus gets the best seat. I think going into next year, if the USFL is indeed going to move the games out of Birmingham and put these in the different cities, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Michigan, um, Pittsburgh, I think fan bases will build, and I think that you'll see 15 to 20,000 people at each one of those games. But at the end of the day, I think the team that's going to succeed is the league, or the league that's going to succeed is going to be the league that is going to be able to attract the best players and pay them the most. Right now,
So you just answered the question. That's the XFL.
right? Yeah, right now, the USFL they're going to have to change. And I learned this. Did you know that the USFL has signed all those players to 2-year contracts, kind of putting them in limbo as far as moving out of the USFL next year. And when you're paying players minimum wage to play football, which is essentially
They're
what
not
they're doing,
paying them minimum wage. They're paying them $40,000 a year, Joe.
minimum wage by football standards,
It's not.
45,000.
It's not minimum wage. It's minimum wage, way below poverty if you're comparing it to the NFL. Comparable to the CFL, but lower. But the thing you got to realize is this: there's guys. When I coached arena football, there was guys there making $50 a game, just because they wanted to play. They wanted to get filmed because they thought they could make it to the NFL. These guys are going to play for whatever they can get. And I would say this: we could call a team pro, put it in an arena league right now, and tell the players you're not going to get paid, and you would still have 500 guys send you their film. It's $40,000 for 4 months. It's not that bad.
No, yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't. I think sitting right here, I want one of these leagues to succeed. I don't think that you could have two competing spring leagues. You can't have two competing fall leagues. That was one of the biggest downturns to the USFL previously. So I hope one of them succeeds. I think we need minor league football in the United States. I think people are more opt to watch that in this country than they are the CFL. But I don't think both of them can survive. And I think probably the XFL, from what I understand, is probably going to come at this with a little bit better game plan than the USFL did.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, it makes sense to me to have a hub city where everybody plays because you cut out all the travel, the expenses of travel. But also, I can tell you this: the first game that was played in Birmingham when Birmingham was there was much more exciting because there was a crowd. It is really hard to take an event seriously when you turn on the TV and there's 500 people in a 50,000 seat stadium. It's just not going to work. And the 3.5 million people is great that first game. Let's see what Friday night's game does. It won't do 1 million is my guess. So I think this. We're doing a USFL show. I hope it works. We're going to keep pushing it. I don't see this working out the way it's running right now.
No, and definitely when the XFL kicks off next year with the backing of the NFL, and the NFL, if they're going to come out and say the XFL is our official developmental league, that is your gateway into, or that is your streamline.
And then that's where all the players go.
That's where all the players are going to want to go. And at the end of the day, I kind of mentioned this to you, I think, when we talked on the phone, that I just can't buy into a concept where you're paying the quarterback of a football team the same amount that you're paying the long snapper. I mean, why the long snapper is an important position, the quarterback is far more important than that position.
I don't know. From what I saw this last weekend, with the majority of those starting quarterbacks, they're not worth what the long snapper makes.
Fair enough.
I mean, come on. I mean, Paxton Lynch. If Paxton Lynch is making $40,000 to be a quarterback, you should be paid $40,000 to be a supermodel, Joe, because you're both as qualified.
Well, how do you know what my OnlyFans bring in?
I don't know. But if you want to check out Joe's OnlyFans account, make sure you go check it out. Joe, what's that handle for your OnlyFans account?
I don't have one. But I do have a Twitter handle, and that is at Spillman4150.
Yeah, nobody cares about that. We wanted your OnlyFans.
Yeah, I don't really have one. I was just trying to make myself sound more exciting than I am.
Well, you know what is exciting? Betting.net's not just sports betting. Betting.net compares the best online casinos. Sit back, relax, and play the top online slots, poker, and table games. And at the same time, you can pull up another tab and watch Joe's OnlyFans account. Check him out
Yeah.
at betting.net. All right. Also, if you missed the NASCAR show tonight, make sure you go check it out on Facebook. Is there anything else we want to address before we wrap the show up?
No, I think we addressed it. Like I said, I hope this league takes off. If it doesn't, I hope the XFL takes off next year. Maybe next year we're not doing a USFL show. Maybe we're doing an
Hell,
XFL.
maybe we'll do both.
Yeah, maybe we'll do both. Maybe they could come to some sort of agreement.
They're not.
Yeah.
The NFL is going to control this. If there's minor league football, the NFL will control it. The NFL has a stranglehold on anything that's football in America. I'll tell you what, if I was the USFL, this may sound crazy, but I would play with CFL rules.
Why?
Because right now, the game's boring as hell. I mean, if you cut it to 3 downs, you're going to force them to throw the ball a little bit more. You spread out the field, you make it a little wider, you get some guys that are quick, maybe you can bring in a little bit more excitement. Because really, 4-down football is boring as hell compared to 3-down football. I can tell you this, I would much rather watch a CFL game right now.
Yeah, I like to watch the CFL. They don't ever run the ball, which is great.
You know,
If you're a
put
fan
some
of
guys
football.
in forward motion,
Yeah,
throw
like
the
all
damn
5 of them.
ball. Yeah, you put them all in motion if you want. I mean, you've got to do something to separate yourself from what everybody sees all fall long. There needs to be something a little bit different. Arena football was popular late 90s, early 2000s because it's not like football. It's different, you know, but the guys that own those teams, the guys that own those leagues ran them into the ground, and now that's pretty much non-existent. I mean, your top indoor league right now is the IFL, where players make $200 or $300 a game. That's minimum wage. And I mean, those are guys that, you know, will do anything to play. And I can also tell you this. I've seen guys play indoor football over the last few weeks by watching the games that are better than the guys we see play in the USFL.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're already on teams. I mean, you got a lot of teams that have been around. The Arizona Rattlers been around for 30 years.
Right.
You know, if you're playing there, you're taken care of. You might have moved there if you've been there a few years. It's a safe bet. You know, we don't know. If you were DAAF, everybody thought, well, they got all this money. They're going to make it through their first 2 or 3 seasons at least. You get to week 4 or 5, the league's done. I mean, the problem is, it is a lot more expensive to run a football league and to run football teams than what people realize. If you're coaching arena football, all right, most of the guys that own an arena team, the stadium seats 10,000. They're paying 6,000 for the stadium, and they all have these great ideas. Well, if we could sell 10,000 tickets at $10 a pop, it's $100,000 a game. We can run everything. The only problem is you're not going to sell that. And the USFL, you know, as the weather gets nicer and people have other stuff to do, it stays daylight longer, people are going to stop watching. Because the only football people take serious professionally in this country is the NFL. That's it. And you can be... I was a Michigan Panther fan in 1983. That does not translate to 30 years later. I don't live in Michigan. I liked their helmets back then. I was a kid. I was like 14. What the hell did I know? But there's no connection. And the problem is, by them playing in this hub city, there's no connection. I don't think all of a sudden we're going to find Pittsburgh Maulers and New Orleans Breaker fans showing up 5,000 or 10,000 each to these games.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when the presentation of the game, I thought, by Fox and everybody that did the games was excellent. It was top-notch. The announcers were good. I mean, the graphics were good. You need to get rid of the drone thing because you get seasick watching that shit. But the presentation of the games is top-notch, but the crowd is lacking. You got to have a crowd. I mean, when we watched pandemic games 2 years ago when they started playing and there was no crowd, it was not as good.
Yeah, the play's sluggish. And you could say what you want. Anybody that's been an athlete, you get up on the crowd. When the crowd's yelling either way, even in an away game, you get up on that. But one thing I'll say about that drone cam, Mike, because you brought it up, and I almost forgot about that. The kicking this week throughout the league essentially was atrocious. And I think that may be partly due to, and I saw this when I was down there, they fly that drone, and it hovers right there next to the holder. And so I can only imagine that all the kicker's hearing the entire time he's trying to get set for his kick is the bzzz.
Hey, but at least he hears something. Without that drone, there would be no noise.
That's true. But that has to be annoying as hell.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're going to be an NFL kicker, eventually you're going to have to go to Paul Brown Stadium in front of 70,000 screaming fans and try to kick a field goal. So to me, that's just a bullshit excuse.
That's right. I agree.
All right. And Ryan Peters says Joel Klott is excellent for football.
Yeah.
I don't even know their names of the announcers. I just watched the games, Ryan. All right. Joe, anything else before we wrap it up?
No, hopefully we're doing this in 6 weeks.
Next
I
week.
think we'll make it, yeah, I think we'll make it through this season, but as we stand right here after the first week, I don't know if we have a season 2 of the USFL show here on the Grueling Truth.
Yeah, but we might. You never know. And we'll hang in there with it, and we will be fair. We will be honest. We'll give you the truth. We're not going to push it. I mean, because we all know media, basically, for the most part, is not allowed in unless you work for Fox or one of the networks that is running the game, because they pretty much block that off. They don't want anybody telling you the truth. I can tell you this. Game 1, I thought was great. As I watched the rest of the games, the lack of offense, the lack of quarterback play, offensive line, kicker, it definitely stuck out like a sore thumb for me, but we're going to keep giving it a shot because it's football. And let's face it, I would watch midgets with no legs play football, Joe.
Yeah, so would I.
Okay. Especially if they're topless, right, Joe? You pervert. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. Make sure you follow Joe Spillman on Twitter at
Spillman4150.
Spillman4150.
That's with one L, Mike.
Yeah. What's that mean?
Spillman with one L.
You know what? That's just stupid. Most people named Spillman spell it with 2 L's.
How many people do you know named Spillman?
Harry Spillman.
He spelled it with one L.
But he spelled it with 2 L's when I wrote his name.
Yeah, well, you wrote it wrong.
No, his mom and dad spelled it wrong, just like your mom and dad spelled it wrong. They should have called me before they had you. I could have told them. Okay. But, all right, we're going to wrap it up. We will be back. I think me and Risley are doing an NBA playoff update show tomorrow at 1. So make sure you check that out. And what? What are you doing?
That should be real exciting.
What's wrong with the NBA playoffs?
I don't know. I tuned into an NBA. Well, I clicked through an NBA game the other day.
I'm making all kind of bank today.
I think there was like 12 people there.
I hit a 3-team parlay today. Thank God the Reds lost again to finish off the 3-teamer to pay me $200.
Well, the team, Bob.
And I picked the Sixers, I picked the Raptors in an upset over the Sixers, and the Nets over the Celtics, both playing off. So I could have like a $400 day today. And you know, the best thing to do if you want to do that is go to betting.net. They're your top sportsbook comparison site. Betting.net offers extensive reviews on the best sportsbooks out there. Make sure you check out DraftKings to bet the USFL games. About the only site I've been able to find so far that carries that. But make sure you check that out. Me and Joe will be back next week, 9 o'clock on Wednesday night for the USFL show again. So for now, for Joe Spillman, who spells it with one L, I'm Mike Goodpaster, and I spell mine with one G. So, you've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.